Tabitha, who's first on the list, or so I'll refer to you.
All right, good morning, Honorable Chairman and members of the General Assembly. I'm Tabitha King, and I'm currently serving as the president of the Tennessee Land Title Association, and I'm also a title company owner. So I own, co-owner of Authority Title and Escrow. So this topic really hits home for me, both personally and professionally. So today we're going to just share with you some of the real life examples that we deal with on a daily basis of cyber fraud in our industry and how these cyber criminals are infiltrating the closing process.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning. I'm Shanita Baker. I'm Shanita Baker. I am actually the president-elect of Tennessee Land Title Association and vice president and Mid-South Strategic Growth Director for F&F Family of Underwriters. It's the nation's largest title insurer, which is why we wanted to appear before you today, because we're so concerned about our consumers and some of the things that are happening in the real estate space. So just wanted to briefly show you some statistics. I think it's really important that we recognize that the fraud that's happening right now, it's really everyone's problem. If you own a home or you're intending to buy one, you could fall victim to cyber fraud. In my experience, working with, claims and so forth, it's been a really tough last 3 to 4 years. If you'll notice, in 2019, there were probably about $3.79 million in losses. And now we're up to $37.4 billion in losses across the United States. I personally have knowledge of instances right here in Middle Tennessee where some home buyers erroneously got wiring instructions for where they were to send their down payment for their homes, not knowing that it wasn't communication that came from their title insurance company. They wired the funds. The day of closing, they talk about, I've already sent you the money and it's never been received. And again, this is a concern. The most important investment that you can have is highly jeopardized.
So as you can see, the numbers just do not lie. The cyber criminals are targeting real estate transactions at an alarming rate. According to ALTA, which is the American Land Title Association's report, wire fraud attempts stayed the same or increased for 83% of our title agents in America. A cybercrime is reported every 39 seconds, and phishing attacks surged 27% in just 2 years. Even more concerning is that the victim losses skyrocketed by 72% related to business email compromises, and that's also something that Tom touched on. That totals $10.3 billion, which is equivalent to 30,000 homes that have been stolen. Because of these statistics, consumer awareness and clear communication between all parties, which is realtors, title companies, lenders, and clients, which are the consumers, it's you and I, aren't just important, they've got to become mandatory. Real estate remains the prime target, and we need the right precautions in place so that we can fight back. We're going to show you a little bit going forward on how these scams take place and how we can protect each other.
So what we really want to call your attention to is the sophistication of cyber fraud. When it all started about 10 years ago, it was mostly business email compromise. Now it's become much more sophisticated, where realtors are actually, they're sort of trapped into Zillow listings that are fraudulent. They're reaching out to those folks, enlisting support for selling their homes, and don't know that they are dealing with people who are fraudsters. Last month, I had the personal experience of working with one of our East Tennessee title agents. That agent, in 1 week, lost $338,000 at the hands of a bad actor. The next week, the same bad actor appeared in another transaction with the same company. How bold. The only reason they were able to catch it, they were so good at looking at local driver's licenses for each state and replicating them in a manner that was very hard to detect. The only thing that caught this person was the second time they used the same picture on the driver's license from the previous week. Last week, it was an ID from the United Kingdom. The second time, it was actually a Georgia license. Again, it's very important to understand the sophistication that's happening, and most of these hijackers don't reside in this country. And it's important now that we all somewhat take a stand for this. All right, so I just want to touch briefly, I want to make sure that we're being brief, but the evolution of real estate fraud, where it started and where it's going, and why it's so important. So, you know, we've gone from simple emails that have been hijacked. We all got very cognizant of those because the language sometimes was not the way that we would speak in America. However, now there are so many things that are happening, and I want to call attention to a few very important areas. So sellers' proceeds, when they're wiring in money for the closing of their homes, those are being hijacked. Buyers' cash to close is gone. Mortgage payoffs are being hijacked. And you might ask, how can this possibly happen? Well, these bad actors, they lay dormant. Oftentimes, you know, tricking someone into clicking on a link that's in an email that they receive. It could sit dormant for months. And basically what they're looking at is the opportunity for something to take place. Here's what they know. Real estate transactions involve a lot of money. Middle Tennessee has been specifically targeted because our increase in home values. You know, when you stop to think about it, it could be the worst thing that happens in anyone's life. Seller impersonation on vacant land. So this is a situation where someone may own a home here in Tennessee and a second home in Florida or another place. They're identifying those folks from their residency, and they're attacking the properties that they're least likely to pay attention to. And at the end of the day, if someone doesn't have title insurance, there's no protection. There's really no coverage, even with closing lock and title lock and some of those things. They don't really help. Maybe they can provide notifications after the fact, but that's way too late.
So as Shanita said, these cyber criminals, you know, the way that they operate, their ultimate goal is diverting funds. So where it started with emails, it's now trickling over into every aspect of the real estate transaction. So diverting funds, the closing proceeds, loan payoffs, and commissions all basically start with a hacked email, whether that's coming from the realtor or the consumer that oftentimes doesn't have, you know, multi protections on their emails as the title agents do. So once they gain access to that email exchange, they're just sitting back reading every detail of that transaction, and they wait for the busiest time, which is at closing, and then they strike, sending through a counterfeit email. It looks legitimate, tricking someone, normally the consumer, to get the money straight into the cyber criminal's hands. So it devastates the buyers, sellers, but it also places a heavy burden on us as title agents and the title companies, because not only are we clearing title and insuring someone's property and the interest they have in that property for them and their heirs, we're also now investigating every transaction, every email, which is a very heavy burden on even hiring new staff and the training that goes into that. So that's why, you know, we are advocating for more and more communication. Real estate fraud is a risk for everyone. It can happen to any of us. And it's not just a risk for industry professionals, it's a threat to every consumer, and it has life-changing consequences. Life savings, retirement funds, it can ruin their credit, financial instability, and all of that is an emotional loss. So also the title agents are facilitating all of that. When it comes to why it matters is that it impacts individuals and consumers, which affects the whole family and then our communities, right? So our call to action is to just keep everyone informed, educate all consumers. I feel like it's a public service announcement because there's so many different ways now that we're facing that these cyber criminals are just getting more sophisticated. So with that being said, you know, Shanita and I are very passionate about this industry and the consumers that we serve. You know, we've been doing this for a very long time, and, you know, we're committed to protecting them from the growing threat of the real estate fraud. We just can't do it alone as title agents. We need help from all aspects of the industry. I mean, the registrar's office, attorney generals, lenders. There's just so many moving parts in any real estate transaction. So together, we just want to make a difference. We thank you for allowing us to share this with you, and we feel that it's going to need a lot of attention and to bring a lot of awareness to this subject. Thank you so much.